why your singing voice still isn't getting any better. Hey, I'm Michael Maresca, creator of One Voice. Let's chat.
Hi, I'm Kate Glasheen, and that gentleman is my guest today, Michael Maresca. You can learn more about him at singonevoice.com, and if you enjoyed today's video, please like and subscribe below. Let's get started. When I offer my students or clients voice exercises to do at home on their own, I often provide them with questions to ask themselves as they work. This helps them to develop their mindfulness about their voice and the progress of their voice. And this got me thinking about best practices for the best vocal practice. As the creator and founder of One Voice, my colleague Michael Maresca is the perfect person to explore this topic with. After noticing a pattern in the human voice, Michael went on a journey exploring his own voice that led him to creating an entirely new training methodology. He's taught thousands of singers how to understand the voice and how to build it. He served on the faculty of the Performing Arts Project, the Broadway Theater Project, and the Tennessee Arts Academy, and currently teaches exclusively in the musical theater department at Texas State University. Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for joining me today to talk about One Voice and best practices for vocal practice.
Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I'm going to go ahead and link in the description to your One Voice website so people can go there and learn a lot more about it and what you offer and all the great YouTube videos that you've put out. So what I'd love for you to start off with talking about today is your process as you developed One Voice.
Yeah. Wow. One Voice. How that got to be. That's a great question. I think something that's important to note for most people who are trying to understand things is that in most cases it's generally a selfish aim. And I know that sounds, people say, oh no, selfishness, that's negative. But like our health, right? I believe that our health is something that takes or requires selfishness in order to take care of ourselves. And for me, that was how this whole thing began. This whole One Voice snowball was that I wanted to understand how to sing high. It was completely and entirely selfish. And then later, based on my discoveries, I have been able to help many, many, many thousands of people. And in that way, that's been a huge gift and a huge joy for me. But it all started with this selfish desire. And long story short, I ended up, as you can read on the website, seeing the TED Talk, I found a pattern. This is about 11 years ago. I was working with an alto singer and also a soprano singer. And I had them sing, and both of them actually, in different sessions, private sessions, both of them would actually crack. After I got them relaxed, they would crack at the same note. And I thought, well, that's weird. And so I thought perhaps I was just losing my mind, but I started testing this idea over and over and over in different workshops and master classes that I was teaching. And I would take everyone from a predominant sex and have them relax and sing. And sure enough, they would all crack at the same note. Females would all crack at the same note, and anyone assigned male at birth would crack at the same note. That was unbelievable, and this ultimately led to my first theory on the human voice, which is called the coordinations theory. And the coordinations theory simply speaks to the idea that you can coordinate the muscles in your larynx in a specific way that will give you access to a specific range of notes. And so this, at a foundational level, was quite huge for me. And so what happened is that the concept of One Voice really came from recognizing that there was different coordinations in the voice, different ways that the muscles in the larynx work to allow you access to a specific range of notes. And some of those are really strong and some of those are really weak. And the concept simply was to strengthen the weaker parts, so that I could have equality across all of those different parts, right? And if I could achieve equal strength across them, then I would have achieved One Voice. And that's where the concept of One Voice comes from. So it's not about people say, oh, I love that idea. My teacher teaches that, yes, one voice. Yes, of course, the voice is one, right? That's not what we're talking about. So anytime a one voicer hears that from someone else, they're like, okay, you have no idea what we're talking about. We're not on the same page. So that's what One Voice, the concept of where the One Voice concept came from in our world. And it all was born out of this little selfish desire of mine to learn how to sing high.
So when you talk about building the voice to make it building up those weaker parts, you probably had to do an awful lot of work with your own voice. You noticed this in other people's voices, the pattern. But what was your day-to-day exploration like? How did you work? What was your process? Were there questions you asked yourself?
For me, which I don't recommend, to my clients or anyone, was obsession. Effectively, for me, it became exactly that. It became an obsession. And so, unfortunately, in those beginning stages, and people used to ask me this all the time, they say, how long is it going to take me to do this? How long is it going to take me to do that? How long did it take you to do that, Michael? I said, I'm a really bad gauge, because I was determined that no matter what, no matter how long it's going to take me, I was going to get there. And so it became, for me, constant. How come that didn't work? Let me try that again. Okay, what was different? Is there anything different here at all? Do I feel anything? Okay, let me try this. Okay, let me read this. I read the thing. Okay, it says this. Can I feel that muscle? I don't know. Let me try this again. Okay, I just learned a new exercise. Let me try this exercise. What's the point of this exercise? I don't know. I'm getting in my head. Just try the exercise. See if you can sing higher. That's the only goal, right? And so I was just trying to sing higher, and that was my only goal, was can I sing higher? And it was constant. I mean, it was literally constant. I would be, for example, when I was rehearsing a show, I would be doing this beforehand. I would warm up every day, my little 15-minute, warm-up CD, whatever that was. And then after the show or after rehearsal, guess what I'd be doing? I'd be at home. I'd be researching. I'd be reading books. It totally usurped my mind. And it's not what I would recommend to anyone. And now I've come to build a whole philosophy around how to go after discovery in a really healthy way that I think is much healthier than what I did. And so, like you and I, as you know, right, we all learn from our mistakes, and specifically as coaches, one of the things that we do is we take from our past and say, hey, look, I was there. Let me just give you a hint. Don't do that, right? Just let's skip over that part. You can take my word for it. It's not that fun.
You mentioned some of the things that you would ask yourself, or that how you would kind of notice muscles and that sort of thing. Do you think anatomy is a good understanding of vocal anatomy is important for the individual performer, singer, vocalist who is practicing on their own?
I would say yes and no. I would say, like, really knowing it, in my experience, the reality is that, in my experience, the proprioception of most people is really low in terms of their ability, especially to feel anything in the larynx, because as your viewers may know, we have very few nerve endings inside of our larynx and near our vocal cords. We have plenty in our mouth, our the back of our throat, what we call the vocal tract. We have plenty there, but we have very few in the larynx. So our ability to actually feel or sense those minute changes inside of the larynx are really hard. And so I think for most people, I think understanding, for me, I would say the most important thing is having a goal. And if you feel like you're not getting your results, that you seek out guidance. I think that's the best way to, whether that's, finding a video online, or actually getting coaching, or taking a course or a class. Because I think in order to change, if you want to change, then you have to change how you think. You've got to change what you're doing, or else you're just going to keep getting the same results, right? So for me, I think the greatest thing there, from my perspective, is goals and results. Because the goals will tell you, hey, I want to go here, and the results will tell you whether or not, regardless of anatomy, if you're actually getting the thing done. And then, of course, anatomy can become really helpful, because you might be someone, okay, like I always pull up my larynx, and I'm always tightening the strap muscles here, or I'm using my tongue all the time, or I lift my soft, and it's weird and I shouldn't do it. Oh, now I know. That's the thing I don't want to do anymore. I'm curling my epiglottis, so hey, I'm going to stop doing that. I see. Oh, I don't want that. How do I, oh, that's my epiglottis curling? Oh, okay. And I think that's when, more in an organic way, I think that's when anatomy can become really useful, instead of overloading oneself, which I think a lot of people do sometimes. They overload themselves with anatomy, thinking that that's going to be the answer. When I think anatomy sometimes can be more overwhelming and less helpful for some people, and that it can be really helpful for them to learn it along the path.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think a baseline understanding of how the voice functions and the parts of it, like, probably enough. And then the really important part is understanding what you're feeling and hearing in your own anatomy. Often when I have people do speech work or voice work for speech, I'll have them lay on the ground in Alexander technique, and some of the questions I'll have them ask themselves is, when you start to voice, when you start to breathe, do you feel any part of your body come up off the floor? Because that usually indicates some tension. If I'm asking for full phonation, if they're not quite sure what that really means, I'll say, do you hear any breathiness? Do you hear a sort of textural quality to your voice? Like, what kind of sound are you hearing? It's a way of gauging whether they're fully, bringing the vocal folds together and phonating fully. So yeah, and the more they get to know their own voices and their own bodies and what's happening as they hear, what are they feeling physically as they're hearing voice come out, or even just breath, you can hear an audible breath and go, oh, I've got some tension somewhere perhaps. So things like that are really important to start developing their awareness of.
Yeah, and I think if I can throw in on that, I'd love to throw in an addition to that. And I think that's where we can build that awareness is ultimately by building a really strong practice, because I think having a voice practice ultimately creates, I like to tell people that it helps you develop an intimate relationship with your voice. And why that's important is that if I can build an intimate relationship with my voice, I start to pay attention and feel those tiny little shifts. Ooh, that's different. I didn't feel that yesterday or 2 days ago when I did my workflow. That's interesting. Oh, I've never felt this part of my ribcage. That's cool. Wow. Okay. Well, I do pull my right shoulder up every time I try and hit that note. So why am I doing that? Do I need to do that? Wait a minute. Here's my vocal cords. Here's my shoulder. That makes no sense. Why am I doing that? That's odd, right? And I think that creates a environment that will support awareness.
And you mentioned earlier, getting guidance when you have goals and results that you want to achieve. Yeah. And so I absolutely, there's the need for a vocal coach or a vocal teacher. But in between those sessions where you have guidance, you've led exactly to kind of like the big question of the day is, what are your best practices, recommendations for a person between coaching sessions, practicing on their own, developing a consistent, reliable, mindful vocal practice?
In our world, the way we see it as One Voice coaches is we see the sessions generally not as the breakthrough times. Sessions are just a piece of a larger system. And so the entire system is your vocal journey, right? And so when we work with clients, what's happening is they're working on their voices, yes, in a session with a certified coach, but that coach is training and working with them as peers to say, okay, cool, let's adjust this. This is where you wanted to go. Great. Here's the things we need. This is what we have to accomplish first. Great. Now go make it a thing in your practice. Now go ingrain this in your body. Build the musculature for this, right? And then the question is, well, how do I do that, right? And so one of the first things we do with our clients is we start to build help them understand what that actually looks like day to day, practically. What is a practice, right? So practice in a general sense in our world is seen as something that's repeated and something that we keep up. That's the practice. But what do I do when I sit down to quote unquote practice, right? What do I do? What would I actually do? How do I prepare? And this is where the One Voice vocal workflow comes in. And it's pretty simple, but I think it actually answers. And will answer for a lot of people, and ultimately does when people start to learn it. They start to realize why their voices still haven't gotten any better, because the magic doesn't happen in sessions. And this is something that I have to really impress on people is that, hey, the session, while great, you get information and guidance here, it's not the answer, right? The real magic occurs inside of your workflows, inside your voice practice. That's where the magic happens. Because if you want real change, you have to spend time, you have to work. It's not a trick. And I think that's something that in our industry, particularly the world of voice, it's been a common idea of, hey, give me a trick. Hey, Kate, do you have a trick for me real quick? Hey, Kate, what's a quick trick, a thing that I can just do, make my voice better, right? Make my voice. Can you imagine like walking up to a trainer and saying, hey, do you have a quick trick to just like make my abs awesome, right? And like, oh yeah, just like slap your stomach 3 times and do a circle and it'll be great. Boom, amazing ab. No, that's ridiculous. And we would never say that to a trainer. But when it comes to the voice, suddenly, hey, can you just make my voice have lots of endurance stamina? Hey, do you have a quick trick to just like make me hit top notes amazingly like an 80s rocker? No, actually I don't. And even if I could give you a Band-Aid, that's all it is. And if you can't remember how to replicate it and you have no way to implement it, then it's completely worthless, right?
People just aren't aware of the voice. And so I love what you said earlier about developing an intimate relationship with your voice. If you're going to be a professional vocalist, You absolutely have to. It's imperative. And what you're about to talk about, I presume, is part of how you get there, this workflow.
So the workflow, there's a really important part to this, and I think this is where people are going to start to realize why their voices aren't getting any better. You know, you might be the person who works on your voice and it's not changing. You do your vocal warm-up, your CD from your vocal coach from like 12 years ago, and you notice that your voice just isn't getting where you want it to go. You're doing your exercises. You're being a good vocal health person. You're drinking all your water. You're doing your steaming. You're doing your exercises. You're massaging your voice. Your larynx, your neck, your throat, your shoulder. You're doing all the things, yet it's still not getting any better. And I remember this question that I had a long time ago, and it never turned into anything at the time. But I would always say, people say, oh yeah, let me just do my warm up real quick. Hold on, let me do my warm up. Hold on. No. Mommy made me mash my omelet. And all these little things, right? 15 minutes, 10 minutes, right? Oh, I'm warm. What does that even mean? I used to think, what does warm mean? And because I was an athlete growing up, I would say, so when do you work out? When do you work out your voice? Oh no, I just warm up. So like, when do you work out? Oh yeah. And so there was those were two ideas that were really interesting to me. I didn't understand really what warm up actually meant. When are you actually warm? And why does it take some people 45 minutes to be warm and other people don't have to do anything at all and they're warm? What does that mean? What is this? And so this is ultimately what gave life to the workflow, the One Voice Vocal Workflow, and it's 4 parts. The first part is what we call the startup. That's phase 1. Phase 2 is what's called the prep. Phase 3 is the workout, and phase 4 is the wind down. Okay? Now, people will immediately look at this and hear me say this, and they'll say, oh yeah, so this is a warm up, and this is a cool down. I don't know what this prep thing is, and the workout, maybe I know what that is. Let me explain. And this is going to help you understand perhaps why you might not be growing vocally the way you want to be. First off, the startup, phase 1. The startup's really cool. In the startup, what you're doing is you're simply trying to relax all the tensions that you've occurred prior to this workflow, prior to this moment that I'm about to practice, right? So that means massaging your larynx, your throat, massaging your jaw, the back of your neck, right? Shoulders, wherever you gather tension, right? Because remember, it's not like, even if you go to bed and you just woke up, you're going to think, a lot of people assume, of course, that when you go to sleep, you relax. But we all know that you don't relax when you sleep. Sometimes that's when you're running from a bear that is trying to eat you, and you're suddenly grow wings and fly off a cliff to safety, whatever it is. And then you wake up the next morning, very lovely, and you get out of bed and there's a crick in your neck and you're like, oh my gosh, what happened? Well, you were sleeping. Shouldn't you be relaxed? No, your body's still processing and doing all kinds of things. And so you have now gathered tension, which of course, as you know, right, can really affect the mobility and the movement of the larynx, as well as your rib cage, etc., right? And so the goal is first, release all that. Just massage it. This can take you 5 minutes, right? It's just get in there, mush it all around, let everything go. That's it. No sound making. And that's the startup. And then we move into the prep. Okay, the prep. This is the missing link, I think, for most people. The prep is, simply put, preparing your voice for what it's about to do. Preparing your voice for what it's about to do. So in your practice, when you get into a workflow, which is what we say is when you actually do the thing, you've now done your startup, your prep. The prep is based off of what you're going to be doing in the workout. So if you don't know what you're going to be doing in your workout, how can you prepare for it, right? So the workout in most cases, just to clarify this for anybody, is singing through a song. You might be singing through a song multiple times. It might be singing through all the rock songs that you have in your audition book, or maybe you're doing a set at a local bar. Okay, what's your set, right? This might be singing through the entire set. Okay, now we know that. Or perhaps you are preparing for a play and you've got to do this interesting character voice that also has a dialect, right? Okay, great. How do I prepare for that? And that brings us back to the prep. So the prep now, all its purposes, the only purpose is to ensure that the systems that I need to do this are working. Not that they're perfect, not that they're right, just that they're on. And this is a real big distinction between just being warm. Because warm's a really vague concept, I found, for most people. And so they don't actually know where the line is. And what happens oftentimes is that people keep warming up, and what happens is they go through phase 1, they go through phase 2, they actually go through phase 3, all warming up. And then by the time they have to get to the audition, they're exhausted. Or they're getting there, their voice is just dead. And now, of course, worst case scenario, the casting director say, hey, you know what, could you, I'd like for you to sing these sides as well. Could you do that too? And then could you do this scene as well? And you're just like, yes, of course. Oh my God, I don't know if my voice can make it, right? All because there wasn't clear boundaries here. So what ended up happening is you ended up doing a full workout before you ever even got to the audition, which is a super bummer. And that's because there's a lack of clarity where the boundaries are, right? So this prep is all about doing the things that will help me get to this thing. So for example, let's say I'm going to be doing, I don't know, there's a big high moment in a song, right? Well, what do I need for that big high moment in a song? Maybe I'm going to sing something like, 'cause I want to rock. That's what I'm going to sing, right? 'Cause I want to rock. And that's a moment in a song, right? All right. How do I get ready for that? Well, in a one voicer's language, I would need what we call heavyweight. I'd need volume. I need to be able to distort my vowels. Okay. So how do I make sure those things work? Well, I'll give you a little secret, everyone. In your prep, always ease into volume. Always ease into volume. I would make a joke and say that volume is a silent killer, but it's not. It's a very loud killer. And most people don't know that, and they jump into volume too quickly, and that's where you can get all kinds of weird pathology and things like that can quite literally happen in a snap of a finger. And just stay away from it. Just ease in, ease in. Don't try and force your voice to be ready. It's not the goal, right? So in here, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and turn on the system. So I'm going to make sure first that I can get to my heavyweight, which is this kind of quality, that belty sound, that yelly sound. I'm going to try and ease into that, and I'm going to do that with easing into volume. 'Cause I'm going to rock, 'cause I'm going to rock. I'm going to get a little louder. 'Cause I'm going to rock. I'm also going to start paying attention to the rest of my body. What am I doing right now? 'Cause I'm going to rock. Do I need that? I don't. Let's try it again. 'Cause I'm going to rock. Can I do that? Totally relax. 'Cause I'm going to rock. Great. Okay, cool. Now, I want it to look like I'm rocking, okay? So when I do that, I'm actually going to add some of this stuff. But the difference is that I've already established I don't need any of it, right? So now it actually becomes a choice versus something that just happens to me. And all this is a part of the prep, right? Inside of the prep, that's what I'm aiming for, is preparing my voice. So now I know, literally, I've done the note. I did it with the loud volume. I did it in a heavyweight, and I was able to distort the vowel. Done. That's it. Literally, what I just did, done, ready to go. And people say, whoa, Michael, I don't know if I'm ready. No. It's because you don't have a clear goal of what that is. And so it's not about perfecting the skill that you're doing right now. It's simply about making sure it's on. And if the goal, or rather, if the skill set that you're trying to accomplish before you go into an audition is not where you want it to be, this is not the time to get it there. That's what happens inside of your voice practice, right? Not before the audition. And so what happens now is I go through phase 1, phase 2. 10, 15 minutes, maybe. That's it. That's all I'm doing. So I'm walking into my audition or my workout, right? Or my rehearsal fresh, really strong, ready to go. I haven't expended all of my energy. Because some people will do this and they'll go for 45 minutes, right? And then finally, after I go through my workout, what have I gained? I gained all this tension, right? So now my goal is to release all that tension. And so I get into my wind down, very similar to my startup, right? In the wind down, I'm doing the same things. I'm releasing, I'm relaxing. But key here for us in the world of one voice, we're not making sound anymore. Because you can't cool down sound, right? Sound is neither hot nor cold. It is just sound, right? And so instead what we're really trying to address the musculature around the larynx. We're trying to release the muscles, right? And that's what we start to do. Same thing we did in the startup. So that's the vocal workflow. And I think that if you can understand that as someone who's working with their voice, singing, you will make a massive change in your ability to make progress.
I love all of that. That's so great. And it's so applicable. Like you were saying, what are the systems I need to achieve particular, it could be a very high note in a song. It could be a character voice, like you mentioned. It could be a scream in a play. There's so many instances of extreme vocal use, as well as just, a big high belt that people are required to do. And then, of course, show after show after show, once you've been talking about auditions, which is, everybody needs the information for that. And then when you actually book something and you've got months long run or even just a month of a run, you got to be able to pull it every night, and you can't fatigue yourself. You can't wear yourself out. So this is so applicable to everything required of us as professional voice users or professional vocalists. And so I am so grateful to you for sharing as much detail as you did. It's because I think we can all take that and apply it immediately and start working that into our own vocal practice. And I hope lots of people will come and sign up for One Voice lessons as well, because you guys are so amazing with what you do. So, I hope that they will go and seek guidance as well, because it's all part of your vocal journey, having the guidance. But then, like you said, the sort of breakthroughs and the miracles happen in between a lot of the time, because of the effort, the concerted and considered effort that you put in throughout the week or 2 weeks between your sessions. So, that's all. That was really, really interesting, and just such wonderful advice. Thank you so much.
Yes, my pleasure. I hope this helps. I hope this helps you all out there.
Any final words? Anything that I didn't ask that you'd like to put out there for vocalists that you think is important?
Yeah, I think I said it earlier, but I'm going to say it one more time. I think if you want something different than what other people have, then you need to do things differently, right? And that's something I've taken with myself. If I want something different than what other people have, then I've got to do something different. And which is hard, because sometimes it means we have to open our minds to new ways of thinking. It means we have to try things differently. And I think that can be really hard. But in the end, if we can be brave enough to do that, we reap the rewards.
That's fantastic advice. And this channel talks about vocal issues as well as just life issues, and I think that's a fantastic piece of advice for across all areas of your life too. If you want things to be different, you've got to be willing to be open to doing things differently. Thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate your time and your expertise, and all we can all benefit from your obsession from many years ago. So thank you for saving us the time and giving us those wonderful morsels of excellent advice.
A joy. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Good luck, everybody.